It's with a heavy heart that I record this message. I'm sure we're all feeling the terrible pain and suffering from the horrible news that we received this week. And I wanted to just say something about how we deal with tragedy in our lives. And there's different approaches in Jewish tradition. Perhaps the most common throughout history is that we look inward and we recognize that for whatever reason there's been a terrible decree from above into this world, and perhaps there's something we've been lacking or failing to accomplish in this world that allowed such a terrible judgment to descend and fall upon the Jewish people. And we look to ways in which we can improve ourselves, our connection to God, and to each other. Another way in which we deal with such difficult times is we recognize that everything God does is for the good, and it's only that we can't see the good. And Hasidic philosophy explains that when there's such a high level of goodness that God wants to put into the world, it can't come out the way it is in an open, revealed way because it's too intense. And we wouldn't be able to exist the way we do if such a high level of goodness were revealed. As an analogy, think of the sun. The sun is the source of light, warmth, growth. If it wasn't for the sun, we wouldn't live. The rays of the sun are incredibly good for the earth. However, if you stare directly at the sun, or you were to get too close to the sun, it would overpower you, and it would nullify you out of existence. And so it is filtered through distance, through the atmosphere, and so forth, in order to allow us to appreciate the goodness that the sun has to offer. So too, when God brings negativity, seeming negativity into the world, it's because it's covering over a very intense level of godliness and of goodness. Now, it should be noted that this is something that we say for ourselves when times are good to help insulate us from the negative experiences when they happen. However, at the time it happens, and especially if it's happening to someone else, to another person, you don't say, oh, it's just a higher level of good, don't worry about it. No. Then you are there for them, you cry for them, you help them. And then there's a third way, which is perhaps a blend of these two previous ways. And that is to, in essence, peel off that negativity. Once it comes down into the world, through the negative shell, we have to peel that negativity away, the high level of godliness that's inside, and let it shine in the world. Now, how do we do that? Through that improvement that we talked about earlier. Through giving charity, through doing acts of goodness and kindness. And not only that, but specifically doing it in the name and remembrance of those who have had the tragedy befall them. In this case, obviously the Bibas family and so many others who have suffered so much over the last 500 some odd days of this war. And by doing that, by overpowering the world with more goodness and more kindness, that will remove the shell of negativity from that intense light, from that intense godliness, and let it shine forth into the world, which will elevate the world and initiate a time of goodness, of peace, of love, and joy. God willing, through Mashiach, through the Messiah. Like it says in the conclusion of this week's Torah portion, Mishpatim, where God relates to the Jewish people the blessings that they'll receive from serving God. There'll be no miscarriages, there'll be long life, and wide and spacious borders, and supernatural protection and assistance in the quest to settle in the Holy Land. Shabbat Shalom.